Hello, the subject of today's video is, it's very hot in here, hang on a minute. I can do without that, and yeah, I can do without this as well. And yeah, let's take this off. Quite hot. Okay, yeah, do a few buttons. Don't go away, I'm not taking anything else off. So, what about these? Have you noticed that fewer people are wearing ties, even in relatively formal situations? There was a time when every man who worked in an office wore a tie. Indeed, a lot of other workers wore ties as well. Men of all social classes wore ties to go out, and not just on formal occasions. This is not the case now. How things have changed. Nowadays, even leaders of governments can be seen attending events without ties on. Something that would have been unthinkable not so many years ago. So let's look at ties. Where do they come from? Obviously, we don't know when people first started tying strips of cloth around their necks, but we can trace the origin of the modern tie. The story goes something like this. Before I go on, if you enjoy this video, please click like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and please share it with your friends. The origins of the modern tie can be traced back to the 17th century during the 30 Years' War, which lasted from 1618 to 1648, one of the bloodiest wars in European history, and there have been a lot of them. Croatian mercenaries serving in the French army wore bands of cloth around their necks as part of their uniform. These bands were used to hold up the tops of their jackets together and also served as decorative accessories. The style caught the eye of the Parisians, and soon the cravat, derived from the word croat, became a fashionable accessory among the French upper class. King Louis XIV of France was particularly fond of the cravat, further popularizing it among the European aristocracy. Ordinary people copied the rich and famous. So no change there. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, the cravat continued to evolve. In the early 18th century, cravats were often made of lace and were elaborate, requiring careful tying. But the late 18th century, they became simpler and more varied in style, influenced by the growing preference for more practical clothing during the Enlightenment, the Revolutionary periods, and above all, the Industrial Revolution. In the early 19th century, as men's fashion shifted towards functionality, the cravat evolved into what is now known as the stock and the neckerchief. The stock was a stiff, formal band, while the neckerchief was simpler and had a more relaxed style. By the mid-19th century, the modern tie had begun to take shape, with the advent of the four-in-hand knot, which is still popular today. There are those who favour the half Windsor knot, but I'm not going to get involved in that argument. I've put a link to a video about these two knots in the video description below. When I first started wearing a tie at primary school, I was taught to use the four-in-hand. I've used it ever since. This period also saw the emergence of bow ties and ascots. The modern tie as we know it emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century. The tie became longer and narrower, moving away from the cravat's ornate and bulky designs. The Industrial Revolution played an important part in this transformation, as the growing middle class wanted practical and standardized fashion that could easily be replicated and worn for business and social occasions. Even simpler ties needed to be cared for, though. It was fine for the rich. They could wear anything, however elaborate. They had servants to look after their clothes. Ordinary people had fewer resources, and this could be a problem. The problem with these early modern ties was that they were not made out of the same stiff material that they're made out of today, so they needed ironing regularly. This was at a time when electricity was just coming in, and most people ironed, nearly everybody ironed, with the flat irons that were heated up on the cooking range. You wouldn't heat up a flat iron just to iron one tie, but you still needed to look neat and tidy every day. One solution was this, the tie press. It worked like this. Before going to bed, you would open up the tie press like this, Take off your tie. You might dampen it as well to make it more pliable. Put the part that would be visible. Don't forget, most people wore waistcoats in those days, and so it was just the part right in front of you. Close the tie press, clamp it shut, and let nature take its course all night. In the morning, you would open it up, carefully put the tie on so as not to crease it, and you're good to go. In the 1920s, Jesse Lansdorf, an American tailor, introduced a new method of cutting fabric on the bias at a 45-degree angle, which allowed the tie to lie flat and maintain its shape without twisting. This meant that ties needed far less ironing than before, and it became standard for tie production and is still used today. Throughout the 20th century, the tie became a symbol of professionalism and respectability. Its length and width and patterns fluctuated a bit, but the basic shape has remained the same for the last 100+ years. So why are fewer people wearing ties today? I suppose it's the same reason why fewer people dress formally on any occasion. People tend to prefer the casual look. There have been suggestions that the wearing of ties reduces efficiency at work because the constriction around the neck causes discomfort and raises the body temperature, which can be a problem in modern heated offices. Who knows? Whether or not people wear ties doesn't seem to depend on temperature. I spent many years working in central Rome, and most professional people wear jackets and ties even in the boiling Roman summer. Some suggest that the tie is dying out, and it's certainly true that fewer people are wearing them and on fewer occasions. But I think they are here to stay. I just wish they were a bit more varied, like in previous centuries. Bye for now.